We are going to go ahead and start the discussion on the former President Olusegun Obasanjo's interaction and discussion, and also allegations and concerns to some members of the House of Representatives that met him in Abeokuta, Ogun State on Friday. And this is something that we're going to dive into, basically looking at everything that was discussed in that interaction and comparing it to the current state of the nation. We have via Zoom an analyst, a public affairs analyst, Jide Ojo, who will be joining us to dissect the situation. Good morning, Jide. Jide, can you hear us? All right, I think you need to unmute your mic just in case. So basically, I'm sure you have seen, the controversial situation happening between the former president and the Senate. What is your take on this?
Well, I am of the considered view that former President Obasanjo is trying to play the ostrich. He was there for 8 years. And he couldn't stop what he said was an anomaly. He was former head of state. He was former president. He is the longest serving president of Nigeria. And I think he should just keep short if he doesn't have anything to say. Demonizing democratic institutions like the National Assembly is not the way to go for us. While I do not support extravagance in any of the democratic institutions, we must not also forget that there was nothing on record that Obasanjo himself did to bring down the cost of governance during his 8 years of governance. And if you look at National Assembly, 14.4 million that was alleged to be part of what they take home. When you look at the breakdown of what that 14.4 million is meant for, you find out that in truth, if that money is spent for the purpose for which it is meant, it's not anything bogus or extraordinary. Why did I say so? Given the breakdown that was given by Senator Yemi Adaramodu yesterday in defense of the National Assembly, this money, 14.4 million, was approved by Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, RAMFAC. So it is not like National Assembly arbitrarily approved these allowances for themselves. That is one. It's an allowance. It's not like salary. Two, there are almost 10 items for which this money is meant for, including servicing their vehicles, foreign and local travels, buying of magazines, newspapers, welfare for their visitors, and wide range of other items for which anybody that is interested in the breakdown can access the press statement by Yemi Adaramodu. Now, let's juxtapose what the National Assembly, 469 of them, what they purportedly take home, and what a handful of ministers and coterie of aides of the executive branch, what they take home. In this year, 2024, we heard about the completion of the Vice President's Lodge at the cost of 21 billion. Nobody is sure how much the allowances of ministers of the Federal Republic is. But we know that at least they have 2 official vehicles, apart from the security and all of that. These are, very expensive, exotic vehicles. Now, ministers also control budgets. The National Assembly members do not control any budget. whether you are a principal officer.
Jide, what you're saying is that you feel the former president was backing the wrong tree instead of the ministers he went for the Senate. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that he should not just gaslight the National Assembly. The assumption in the statement made by Obasanjo was that the National Assembly sat down and gave themselves those bogus allowances. What we consider to be bogus, in the true sense of it, is not extraordinary sum of money, in my own estimation. I may be wrong.
We'll come back to you, Jide, on that one. We also have Dr. Obama Yagoso via phone call. He'll be joining us from Adamawa. He is a development strategist, author, and public affairs analyst. Good morning, Dr. Obama.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Of course, it's good to hear from you. So we've heard Jide Ojo's thoughts on this situation. What is your take on the former president's back and forth with the Senate?
Well, while I may not agree with everything the former president said, and also with the style and fashion with which from time to time he comes into public life and makes his opinions known, I think that he should be taken seriously. Reason being that he's been around and he's led Nigeria as a military leader, handed over to civilians. It was during his time that we had a civilian to civilian transfer of power. He presided over the Nigerian economy at a time when we had high debts, was able to clear those debts, and left the Nigerian economy in a better state, on which Yar'Adua and Jonathan were able to build and eventually got the Nigerian economy to the first economy, the best economy in Africa, even though we've lost that position in recent times. I think that to assume that he should have been able to solve all the problems of Nigeria while he was in power is not proper. Nobody can do that. I think what we should be asking ourselves is, did he leave a foundation upon which others could build? I think without any bias that he did. Of course, he had his weaknesses, and I am not a fan of his. But having said that, I would not, in this current situation, pick a particular arm of the government and talk about the expenses that is spent on them. I think that overall, the Nigerian government, we run a very, very expensive government. It's agreed everywhere that the Nigerian administrative system is one of the most expensive in the world. So I would rather look at it holistically. What can we do as a whole to reduce the huge sums of money we spend on administration in Nigeria?
All right, gentlemen.
What can we do to redress the situation where the people who are meant to serve Nigerians are actually lifted up there, put on a pedestal, and they act as masters? They have the resources. The people who they are supposed to serve really do not have the resources. So those are some of the questions that we should be asking, and I think those are some of the things that Obasanjo wanted to talk about. Maybe he didn't go about it the way we would have loved to.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, let's take a pause. There's more clip of the former president addressing certain situations. So let's take a look at this clip, then we'll come back and continue this discussion. Take a look.
Run the refinery. Take part. You can take 10%, you can take 20%, but come on. They say no. I say, okay, all right. If you don't want to take equity, come and run it for me. They say no. So they left. I then called their head one-on-one. I said, look, sit down with me. Why do you turn down? They gave me 5 reasons. One, they said our refineries are small. I think Port Harcourt is 60,000 barrels a day. And I think that's Port Harcourt. Kaduna is maybe 100. I think Warri is the largest, I think, maybe 120. And they said to me then that, look, refinery is about 250,000 barrels a day. So our refineries are too small. 2, they said, look, even we run our refineries as a service, but we make sure that we do not run it at a loss. But we make substantial part of our profit in the upstream. So, the refinery, if you run it well, you will break even and make a small profit. But if you don't run it well, you will run it at a loss. 3, they say our refinery, the way we have managed it, the way we have serviced it, is not the way that refinery should be serviced. So they don't want to get involved in that. 4, they said to me, the corruption along the refinery, they did not want to get involved in it. When they told me all that, I was completely numb. And then some Nigerians got together. They paid 750 million. I said, God has sent this one. My successor said, he turned it back. I ran to him and I said, look, you know this is not right. He said, well, NNPC said they can do it. I said, NNPC cannot do it. NNPC, I think you are investigating $1.5 billion that NNPC has spent on refineries since then, and the refineries will not work. But I told my successor that the refineries, from what I have heard and know, will not work. And when you want to sell it, you will not get anybody to buy it for $200 million as scrap. And that is the situation we are in now. So why do we do this type of thing to ourselves? NNPC knew that they cannot, but they knew that they can eat and carry on with the corruption that was going on in NNPC. And when people were there they put pressure. In a civilized society, those people should be in jail. Why do we do this to ourselves? And that is NNPC. Take anything. National Shipping Line, the story of it. Nigeria Airways, the story of it. Why do we do this to ourselves?
The former president's speech there talking about refineries and the possible ways of how it would work. Jide Ojo, I don't know if we still have you there. Based on what the former president talked about refineries, what is your take on the promises that at least we would get to have one refinery work, at the end of this year or beginning? I don't know a specific time that the NNPC has given so far, but what is your take on the corruption in the refinery and petroleum sector?
Now, my sister, former President Obasanjo is on point in this aspect. While I disagree with him on gaslighting the National Assembly, I 100% agree with him on this particular issue of corruption and opacity in our oil and gas sector. I recall very vividly, he managed to sell the Port Harcourt and I think Kaduna refineries to Blue Star Consortium that was then led by Aliko Dangote and some other foreign partners. And Nigeria Labour Congress, I should hold them responsible. They were part of the group that mounted pressure on late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua that they will make the country ungovernable if he does not rescind that decision to sell those refineries to Dangote. The whole clamor, oh, you want to make Dangote a monopoly, and this is supposed to be social amenity, Now, whether the pressure is from NNPC, the same story, what Obasanjo did not even add is that of Abeokuta. Apart from the Nigeria National Shipping Line, the Nigeria Airways, Abeokuta, people are drawing salaries for over 3 decades without it producing one rod of iron sheet. And this 1.5 billion, I have spoken on several media platforms where they ask me, Mele Kyari said by August 2024, the Port Harcourt refinery will start to work. We are almost in the middle of August. Did he make any commitment last week when he appeared before National Assembly? Did he give us any definitive date? So the point is that we have high tolerance for corruption in this country. That's why. And you could see the fingers of international oil companies in all of this. Yes, I agree that there is a lot of opacity and corruption in our oil and gas sector, but it's not just within the country, even outside of the country. I don't know whether you read the piece by David Udein, who said some Western countries were trying to recruit him to write damaging opinion articles about Dangote refinery, and they were going to pay him 800,000 naira. If he had accepted, you would have been seeing this kind of opinion flying all over our social and conventional media. At the end of the day, that was why I did not agree with the Farouk Lawa or Farouk Ahmed, the NUR midstream, the executive director or whoever is the one in charge of the midstream, that said Dangote refinery is producing high sulfur content diesel, and that is 45%, which is trying to demarket the Dangote refinery. Now, Dangote, they took over. They did not sell him the oil refinery, the Port Harcourt refinery at that time. He took the gamble, built a $20 billion refinery. Now we start hearing stories. We don't have enough crude to supply to Dangote. The international oil companies are supplying Dangote at over above the market price, like $3 to $4 above what is sold in the international market, just trying to frustrate him. That is to tell you the level of collusion. That while the international oil company may have been pointing fingers at our local collaborators about corruption, but they are also part of the corruption network. The whole concept of oil theft, up to today, in President Tinubu's last week Sunday, the Upper Sunday's August 1st speech, he talked about our crude oil production has increased to 1.6 million barrels per day. Our budget for 2024, did you know it was, I think, 1.8 or 2.1 million barrels per day that we projected that we are going to earn? That means we are still having a huge shortfall, which is lost to oil theft in the Niger Delta, really. Yeah, so who are the people responsible? Pompolo said he has names of big wigs.
That is a huge question out there, Jide. Who are the people responsible? But based on what the former president said, let me come back to Dr. Bamai. Based on what the former president talked about he spoke with some people in some groups, and basically, based on their discussion, it gave him, or he lost hope on these promises of refinery. And I don't know if you saw this over the weekend. There's been a movement, a picture of or screenshot of a tweet where someone was saying that the petroleum sector has given another, or oil sector has given another date for refineries to work. That's in the national, the state, the country's refinery to work. And then someone asks, is the refinery aware? So now, based on what the former president said, Dr. Bamayi, what is your take on this? He feels that there seems to be a lost hope and fake promises being given to Nigerians.
Well, NNPC is symptomatic of the problem that is destroying Nigeria, which is corruption. And I am one of those who have said, and I believe in this strongly, that if we had not discovered petroleum at the time we did, we will be in a much better state. As a matter of fact, Nigeria would be a first world country by now. Because we were given to intellectual engagement, to research, to pursuit, to hard work, to enterprise, but when we started making money from fuel, it's like we just gave up research, we gave up hard work, we gave up pursuit, and replaced it with arbitrage. All you need is connection in the government. You lift a certain amount of crude, and in a week or two, you are a multi-millionaire without breaking a sweat. And that strengthened corruption, entrenched it so much so that even government itself has not been able to get the refineries work. Not that we do not have the money, not that we don't have the technology or the expertise. We have it. Where we don't have it, we can easily bring it in and make our refineries work like refineries around the world are working. Why is it that in Nigeria refineries do not work? It's because of corruption. There are people who will lose money, powerful people, well-connected people, if these refineries are working and producing normally, and they don't want to give up. It's the same thing with the power sector. There are people, there are entrenched interests, people within this country who have supporters, enablers outside the country, like the other speaker was saying earlier on, that would not want our power sector to function like it's functioning in other places, because the functionality of the power sector in Nigeria will enable the functionality of the economy, and they would lose out. So the situation is, we have a few people who would rather have wealth, so much wealth that they don't know what to do with it, and the rest of us suffer, than to have a situation where the majority of the people are doing well, the country is developing, things are functioning, and they too are also doing well, but not as well as they think they are doing right now.
Yeah,
so I agree with him. It's corruption. It has to be dealt with. But I look at the government right now, and I also look at previous governments. We're not dealing with it the way we should do.
But Dr. Bamayi, it breaks my heart when they say powerful people, and I always ask, who is more powerful than a country that, these people keep getting away with this? But let's shift, hopefully we get to have other conversation on that one. Let's shift gear to another discussion that was done still on this interaction about the 6-year single-term proposal. Obasanjo expressed strong opposition to the proposed constitutional amendment for a 6-year single term to presidents and governors, because he said, obviously, the person mindset is still the same. So whether you give him 8 years, 4 years, or 6 years, it does not really matter. Jide Ojo, walk us through your thoughts on this.
Well, again, I agree with former President Obasanjo on this. We have made political offices in Nigeria not to be accountable. And even though there are impeachment procedures stated in the Constitution, just like we have recall for lawmakers, this has not worked. So if a person becomes a governor or president, he is most likely, barring any unforeseen circumstance of death or resignation, is most likely going to serve out that term. So, and I think I need to flag something here, my dear sister. The issue with our governance system stems from our electoral system. Why did I say so? You find out that the cost of running for office in Nigeria is gargantuan. A lot of people spend billions to emerge candidates of their respective parties. Now, the Electoral Act 2022 talked about 150 days of campaigns. Then, by the time you're done with campaigns, the election day, you have to pay party agents we have 176,000 plus polling units. Just imagine if it's the candidate that will have to pay all the party agents that are going to man each of these 176,000 plus polling units. Then other monies, legit and illegitimate, that you have to spend. The one you spend on security, the one you spend on your campaign office, running that campaign office for like 6 months or 1 year, and so much. So you find out that an average governorship candidate or presidential candidate spend billions to emerge victorious. So at the end of the day, when they win, even before they win, they also have to earmark money for litigation, because whether you win primaries or lose, your traducers, your co-contestants or aspirants will still drag you to court. You have to hire senior advocate. Then after your electoral victory at the general post, you still face a very long time of litigations. So at the end of the day, you become president, you are owing a lot of money or political IOUs. So at the end of the day, it becomes president. First 4 years is trying to recoup his investment in politics, and in the last year, he must have garnered enough resources to run for the election. But even where you have 6 years, that 6 years is more like a roller coaster, because you have a pliable national and state houses of assembly who can hardly checkmate the excesses of the president or governors. So at the end of the day, I blame the structural defect on our structure. There is not much accountability and transparency in governance. Because if we have followed through with what happens in other climes, look at the case of Donald Trump. He lost the election bid. That's why he's trying to seek a re-election in 2024. In Nigeria, well, it happened in 2015 that Goodluck Jonathan lost re-election, but it was an aberration before then. So people hardly lose the election, and when they have spent so much on their electoral, activities or campaigns, they want to recoup that, and at the end of the day, it's good governance that suffer. So whether you have 2 terms of 4 years, as we currently have it, or 6 years of single term, as is being proposed, it does not really solve the problem of good governance. It has to do with how you govern at the end of the day, whether for 4 years, for 6 years, or for 8 years.
All right.
It's your legacy that people are interested in. And that's why it's very important for citizens, the media, and civil society to continually hold government to account. Because when you just look at, he's going to lead there in 6 years.
All right.
In 6 years, he could have done so much damage that even another person coming in may find it difficult to repair. Look at our crude oil sales. We have swapped our crude oil for almost 20,
all right, let's
30
come
years.
back to Dr.
The crude oil that we have not even
on this
mined.
matter. Now, among the concerns, apart from the 6-year term, there was also a suggestion of rotation of power, arguing that there should be from the north and south. But he said it's not constitutional matter, but rather a political party affairs. I want to hear your take on that one, and also on the fact that they've been pushing on constitutional amendment process. The former president made mention that the process period is too small for a constitution reform. Let me hear your quick take on that one.
Well, in developed climes, in places where the rule of law is followed and there's order, and people understand what is right and go after it and actually do it, it is not difficult for a citizen that is qualified to run for office, be a governor or a president, to come out and run for it, whether he's coming from a minority constituency in terms of tribe or any of those considerations. But in Nigeria, the system is such that if you are not from, in a state, for instance, if you are not from a majority tribe or a majority religion or a region that controls a lot of power, either at the federal level or a lot of money, but it doesn't matter how good you are, it doesn't matter your good intentions, it's very difficult to come out and become the president of the country. So I understand with those who are saying that there should be rotation. Because as Nigeria stands right now, if there is no rotation or insistence on rotation, whether it's constitutionally done, and I think it should not be constitutionally done, it should be a party matter. If there is no, if that insistence is not there for that to be done, a particular section of this country will rule the country perpetually. And it's the same thing with a lot of our states. You find in the 3 senatorial zones in a state, 1 senatorial zone is producing governor after governor, and it's a combination of some of those factors that I mentioned earlier. It's not that they are the best, it's not that they give the best leadership, but it's just that they have control of power. For some reason, either tribal or religious, they have a majority. And each time they are in power, they create the circumstance that it has to be one of them that takes over from them. And so the other sections of the state or the country are left without access to power, and not because they're not good. Probably they would produce the best leadership that that state needs. And this leads to a lot of the marginalization leads to a lot of agitations, and it creates bad blood. And you have situation where there's bloodshed, etc., during elections.
No, all right, quickly,
I think
Doctor,
it should be looked at.
All right, quickly, this constitutional amendment that the former president made mention, do you think that the process needs to be slowed down in order for there not to be a mistake or a loophole?
In bits and pieces and in a hurry in Nigeria, you see, the Constitution is a living document. It grows. Circumstances will change. Times will change. That a law that is useful today might not be useful tomorrow. I think there should be a mechanism by which we're able to make changes when and as is necessary, but not wait for these windows that we keep opening and then we rush through them. It would not give us the best. I agree that it should be an ongoing process that is slower so we can get the best result instead of just rushing through a window.
Yeah. All right. Due to time constraint, we cannot, continue to unbundle all what the former president said. But thank you so much, gentlemen. I appreciate you, Dr. Agoso Bamayi, for joining us to dissect the situation.
Thank you.
Also, Mr. Jide Ojo, public affairs analyst, appreciate you for giving us your time to talk about this issue.
It's my pleasure. Have a great weekend.
You too. You too. All right, and with that, we have come to the end of this episode. Always urging the people involved to make sure the country's structural challenges are being, checked and done properly for the growth of our country. We'll definitely continue to give you updates on the situation here. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, it will be time for us to take a look at the front pages of our national dailies. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.